Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Today is Thursday, March the 27th, I do believe. Yeah, the 27th. So, I've I've listened to a couple or watched a couple of stories about this. They did a panel group of people in Michigan who had voted for Donald Trump. I wouldn't consider these people like extreme MAGA or anything. I think they were kind of like maybe center right. And so they had voted for Trump and now they are regretting their vote. So they talked to them about why. And my podcast is called Make It Make Sense. So I just would like for somebody to make it make sense to me as to how these people were so disillusioned and misinformed and thought that they really thought that things that are happening would not happen. They had no. They basically were saying they had no idea that he was going to be this extreme and that he was going to be so reckless and this and that, and they regret their votes. And you know, I haven't always been like the most like up to date on everything that's going on with politics kind of person. And, you know, but when I knew that Donald Trump was running again, I immediately was like, I'm going to follow everything to do with this campaign. And the biggest thing that came out, and I remember it so well, whenever they released the Project 2025 documents, it was all over TikTok and it was all over everywhere. And everybody's saying, read it. This is what's coming. This is the plan. I mean, it was basically Donald Trump's playbook. And, he's carrying out everything in Project 2025. And of course, when he was campaigning, he was, distancing himself from it and saying he didn't know what it was and, this and that, because he knew that people wouldn't like it. He's very, very strategic and skilled at um, targeting certain groups to get votes. But I need all Americans to understand, no matter who you are, you can be the biggest Donald Trump supporter in the world and you can be as MAGA as you want to be. He does not care about any of us, no matter who we are. He doesn't care. He cares about rich white men. That's what he cares about. He cares about Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg. That's who he cares about. And you just got to realize that. You got to wake up. You got to realize that. Now, but my biggest thing was that these people who were kind of undecided or on the fence about who they were going to vote for, that just blows my mind. I have no doubts in my mind about why the extreme MAGAs voted for him, because they love everything that's about getting rid of anything that's not straight and white. So I'm not even going to go into each community that they hate and that they want to get rid of, but they just hate anything that's not straight or white. And so that's why they voted for him. It wasn't about the price of eggs. It was about, racism and exclusivity, like excluding any other groups that's not straight and white. So that's just everybody else, basically. So we know why they voted for Trump, but I'm talking about these people who were undecided. And, the Democrats, the race that they ran There was a lot of upheaval that went on. Joe Biden was in the race, and then he decided to drop out of the race, and then he endorsed Kamala Harris as the nominee, and she had 100 days to run a campaign. Now, there's been a lot of analysis about what could have been done better, and there's a lot, which I'm not going to get into. But you definitely didn't have any doubts. There was no doubts about Donald Trump's message. There was no doubts about what he was planning to do. And the problem is too, a lot of times is people don't take him seriously. Is he really going to do that? Does he really mean that? Yes. If it sounds terrible and horrible, and you're thinking, oh my God, there's no way, then just understand that, yes, that's what he wants to do. So, that's just how it is for him. That's just how he is. And, I am not here to say that, the Democrats do everything perfect and that's how you should always vote. And I've got a lot of issues with politicians in general. It doesn't really matter to me what party they're affiliated with, because there's a lot of, the kitchen table issues, guys, the things that matter to most Americans. What are those things? Having health care, not having to live paycheck to paycheck, having money to put food on your table, and maybe having a little extra to save, being able to save for retirement, being able to live in a decent house and drive a decent car and not living below the poverty line. Perhaps being able to take a vacation once a year with your family, things like that, and you got to be honest with yourselves. Not only has Donald Trump not addressed this, but who has? I mean, that's kind of where I'm seeing things. When I listened to Bernie Sanders out on the Fight the Oligarchy tour, and Bernie Sanders is laser focused on the kitchen table issues and what needs to be done, and talking about universal health care. I don't know why they consider that progressive. Like every other developed nation in the world has universal health care except for us. And people want to say, well, that's government run health care. Well, what do you think Medicare is and what do you think Medicaid is? They're both government run health care. So it's just a matter of how you do it, how you implement it, And I was glad that Barack Obama, when he was president, wanted to try to do something to help reduce healthcare costs. So he, of course, he of course came up with the Affordable Care Act. That still wasn't good enough, and it didn't help as much as people thought it would. Now, it did offer more people coverage that couldn't get coverage before, but they left it up to each state to decide if they wanted to take the Medicaid expansion. So you couldn't even get the health care if you're in a state that didn't take the Medicare expansion or Medicaid expansion. Anyway, there was a lot of flaws with the Affordable Care Act, a whole lot of flaws. But not one person, not one president, not one administration since then has done anything to help reduce healthcare costs. No one. And that's so disappointing. And I'm just tired of all of these politicians just ignoring the kitchen table issues and not truly working for the American people. And it's terrible what's happening now, but we can do better. And we can do better for sure. But I mean, right now we're living in these very unprecedented times with all of these things happening, all of these threats to people, like the PhD student who was kidnapped off the street, by undercover ICE agents and detained. And something else I want to make clear that people should understand is that if you are pro-Palestine, that does not mean you're anti-Semitic. That does not mean you are against Jews. That's not what that means, okay? Because they're trying to obliterate the Palestinians. They're just trying to commit genocide and get rid of them. And for those of you who don't know, Donald Trump is funding the war. He's giving weapons and money to Israel to help them obliterate the Palestinians. That's why there hasn't been any ceasefire. That's why they keep bombing them. And, if you all think it was a joke when he made that AI video of him on the Gaza Strip and with all the Trump buildings and Trump statues, and if you don't think that's what he really wants to do, you're sorely mistaken. That wasn't a joke. See, people don't take him seriously. He really wants to do that. But in order to do that, he has to get rid of all the people that are living there now. It's not livable. It's nothing but a pile of rubble. He's not wrong about that. I mean, but they all went back into their land because it's their land. And they want to rebuild it. They want to, and that's what we should be doing. We should be putting a stop to this godforsaken attack on them that is just obliterating the whole population. And we should be helping them to rebuild. He wants it for himself. So he's helping Israel to be able to achieve this goal. And it's genocide is what it is. So if you stand with Palestine, it's for good reason. I stand with Palestine, but I'm not anti-Semitic at all, by no means. So that I wanted to make clear to people because, a lot of people act like they don't understand that. And then they're trying to go after anybody who's pro-Palestine. And, people are being surveilled, people are being targeted. And those of us who are active on social media and making podcasts and speaking out, we could very well be surveilled as well. But I did make a video just a short video that I said, here I am, come get me, because I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop fighting. I'm not going to stop trying to get the word out about what the truth is. I'm not going to stop. I'm attending the protest on April 5th. It'll be my third protest that I've went to. And the second one I went to, I drove all the way out to DC, and me and my daughter, 9.5 hours to go to the protest out there. And this one is local, and the other first one I went to was local as well. It was at the state capitol. This one's going to be in Louisville, at the courthouse building is where it's going to be. So I'm going to go to that one, and because I'm just not going to stop fighting. Like it's that important to me. It matters that much to me to fight for our democracy. So, I just am very disillusioned I'm just confused by people that, like I said, who are like center right or were undecided voters or might be independents or whatever and voted for Donald Trump and then acting like they don't know, they didn't know he was going to do the things he was going to do. That blows my mind. It was all spelled out for all of us. And we tried to warn everybody that this is what was coming. We saw it coming. We knew what was coming, and nobody wanted to listen. And now here we are. And it's like I was saying though, it can be difficult sometimes because in the 2020 election, when he ran against Biden, I didn't find Biden to be the most viable candidate. That wasn't who I wanted. I was a big Bernie supporter. And Bernie was, put his hat in the ring, and then he dropped out of the race. And I was so upset. He came to Louisville and had a rally, and my daughter and I went. He's a big Bernie supporter. But I also liked Elizabeth Warren and a couple other people. But Biden wasn't my choice. And so when he became the nominee, he's running against Donald Trump. And I was having a hard time because I didn't want to vote for Biden. And I was really strongly considering voting for Trump. And so I called my brother, and we talked about it and everything. And, and ultimately I did vote for Joe Biden. But I'm just saying that, sometimes you just have to really think about things, and you have to choose the lesser of the two evils, which is what we almost always end up with when we finally get our two candidates. It's never who we want. But in this year's election with Kamala Harris, now I didn't feel like I was choosing the lesser of the two evils. I was very, very excited and very confident in her ability to do the job. Now, when Donald Trump ran in 2016, for me, it was, I didn't know anything about him. Like, I knew a lot, everybody knew a lot about him, like with The Apprentice and who he was as a person. My thing in 2016 was that I just wasn't confident in his lack of experience, which showed and still shows in running the country. And he had never been in politics, and I just wasn't very confident in his ability to do the job. And he was saying some pretty ridiculous things too, and doing some pretty ridiculous things. And and I was not for that. And again, though, Hillary Clinton was not my first choice at all. But I voted for her because I certainly wasn't going to vote. I mean, it wasn't that I hated Donald Trump or anything like that. I just didn't feel like he was equipped to do the job. And now today, even after he's been president once, here he is president again. And I see him being asked questions by the press, and he'll say, What are you talking about? What is that? They asked him about the four, I believe it was four American soldiers that were killed in Lithuania. I don't know anything about it. And I don't know if he's just saying that because he don't want to talk about it, or if he really doesn't know. I'm like, is he not being briefed on what's happening? Why doesn't he know about this? So it makes me question who really is running the country, because, when they asked him about Signalgate, what does Pete Hegseth have to do with anything? What does he have to do with anything? And then he starts blaming the app, and it might be defective. And what do you mean, what does Pete Hegseth have to do with it? He was the one on there discussing all of the attack plans. He was the one giving all the information. But to me, it doesn't even matter what they were talking about. They could have been telling some of the biggest government secrets in the world. The whole point is that they shouldn't have been on that app. That's the whole point. They should not have been on that app discussing any of this. No matter what was discussed, they shouldn't have been on there discussing it. If they were talking about meeting up for the softball game, or what they were all gonna have dinner that night, then fine. But they shouldn't be on the Signal app discussing anything related to their jobs. These are very incompetent people that we have in these cabinet positions, and it's scary. It's really scary, because the incompetency is what the risk to our national security is, but Donald Trump was just like, huh, what are you talking about? And I've seen him say that more than once. They'll ask him a question, and he'll say, huh, I don't know anything about that. And I'm just like, what? Why don't you know? What are you talking about? You don't know. That blows my mind. And a lot of people are speculating that he might have dementia, or that his mind, I don't believe that. I believe his mind is perfectly fine. I used to work on a memory care unit. I spent years with people with dementia, and I know a lot about Alzheimer's and dementia. Now, I believe that Joe Biden had dementia. I believe that wholeheartedly. And I said it all the time. When he ran in 2020, that's what I told my brother. I said, the man has dementia, and I don't think he's fit to run the country. So what are we supposed to do? And I'll admit that, and, it's like when I posted my video about, when I said, I'm not scared, I said, you can come get me. Here I am. I get, comments. This was on TikTok, and there's always the bots, but you get these people come in your comments, the MAGA people, and one of them said something about, but you don't care about people setting cars on fire. Now, did I ever say that I didn't care about people setting cars on fire? I never said that. But do I agree with people setting cars on fire? No, I don't. Now, I do believe in what I'm loving this boycotting Tesla. Tesla. I love Tesla. That's what Donald Trump says, I love Tesla. That's what he calls them, which I think is hilarious. But anyway, Elon Musk is having the day he deserves. Okay. That, people hate him for good reason. And it's not about Teslas. It's not about Teslas. It's about Elon Musk, and it's about what he's doing and firing all these people and destroying our government. And it's about that, and it's about him giving Sig Heils every chance he gets. It's about him being a Nazi, and it's about a lot of things. It has nothing to do with Tesla. Now, should people be vandalizing the dealerships and setting cars on fire? No. But should they be considered domestic terrorists? Also, no. Because the crime they're committing is vandalism, and that's what they should be charged with, is vandalism, not domestic terrorism. And they're talking about, well, we should send them to the prison in El Salvador, and that's a whole nother thing. Did y'all see Kristi Noem? Oh my God. And that's what I don't understand either, is when did the people in this country become so just evil and have no heart, no compassion whatsoever? It blows my mind. And she's standing there in her little photo op with all the people in the prison, and she's like, if you come to our country illegally, this is what's going to happen to you. And we've already heard that a lot of people that were taken there are not gang members, are not committing crimes, some of them here in the country legally. So don't be pushing that bull mess that you're only detaining and deporting criminals, because you're not. You're getting rid of anybody that doesn't agree with you. That's what you're doing. Or if you're brown, or, and if you're from another country. And if you're brown, that's what they're doing. They want to get rid of brown people. All the brown people, including the brown people that live here. They want to get rid of all of them. That's the goal. Read Project 2025. Go back and refresh your memory and read it, because it's all about white supremacy. That's what the goal is, okay? It has nothing to do with protecting us from these dangerous criminals. Yes, if there is someone in the country who is here illegally, which I can't fathom someone would have the nerve to come to another country illegally and then start committing crimes. That just blows my mind that somebody would even have the nerve to do that. But they do it. And I know people come to this country for nefarious reasons. I know that happens. But that's not who they are targeting. They're targeting a PhD student on a college campus who's never committed a crime in her life, who's here legally. But because she's pro-Palestinian, that's why she was targeted. So they want to be all these champions of free speech. But they only believe in free speech when it's what they're saying. Their hate speech is what they want to have the freedom to be able to spew, is their hate speech. It's so hypocritical. The hypocrisy is just rampant with these people. It blows my mind. And it blows my mind the people that refuse to see it. But they're deep, deep in the Kool-Aid is what it is. They're deep in the Kool-Aid, and they can't see it. They can only see things one way. And they worship Donald Trump as if he is a god. I think they believe he's God. I think they believe he's like the Jesus Christ come back or something. I don't know. They worship him like a god. And it doesn't matter what he does, what anybody in his cabinet does, what anybody in his administration does, no matter how wrong it is, they defend it. They've been spending the last 2 days doing nothing but denying everything that's happened with Signalgate and deflecting and denying. And it just blows my mind. And then mincing words over what's classified and what's not, and this and that. It's like, it was undeniably classified information. But the bigger issue is that they shouldn't have been on that app. Oh yes, his name escapes me, but the reporter from the Atlantic was added to it. Yes, and that shouldn't have happened either. But the fact that they were on the app to begin with, therein lies the problem. Okay, they weren't in the Situation Room. They weren't in a SCIF, is what they call it. I've learned about that this week. And it's supposed to be a secure area, secure phone, secure area, all of that you're supposed to do when you're discussing classified information. But you do not do it on your personal phone. And there was a lady who came on to a podcast I was watching, and she worked in national security. And she had 3 phones. She had a White House phone, she had her national security phone, and then she had her personal phone. And so she said, you never, ever use your personal phone for any business related things. They haven't admitted to using their personal phones, but I could almost guarantee you they were on their personal phones. But anyway, I don't know how much longer we're going to have to endure this travesty, but I just keep hoping that it's all going to end soon. But I just had all this stuff on my mind and I wanted to get it out. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned something. And I try not to be negative, but I'm a very much glass half full kind of person. I try to think positively. I try to see the silver lining. But all of this just blows my mind. And as my podcast says, I need somebody to make it make sense, especially these people that voted for him and now are saying they regret it. And then but it's one thing to say you regret it, but it's another thing to say that you didn't know what he was going to do or what was going to happen. They had a whole playbook. It was all written out there for you. And they all act like, I didn't know. Well, you didn't do your homework. And when a situation is as serious as this, you got to do your homework. You just have to. You may not want to, but you have to. I did my homework. And I will continue to. I've learned a lesson through this. And I want to know what the Congress people are doing. I want to know what the Senate is up to. I want to know who votes and how they vote. I want to know all of that because it's going to help me make a decision when I do go to the polls on who I want to vote for. So anyway, I hope everyone has a good evening. Tomorrow's Friday. So weekend's almost upon us. I'm glad for that. So everybody have a good night. Please, please, please like this video. Please subscribe. That's all I'm asking. Pushes it out into the algorithm so it can get more views. Trying to build my platform. So please help me. And I appreciate y'all. Have a good night.